सबैजनालाई न्यानो स्वागत छ। अब म सुरु पनि गर्छु। Warm welcome everybody to this 120th lecture series run by Social Science Baha in collaboration with Association for Nepal and Himalayan Studies Kathmandu Center. छोटकरीमा Association for Nepal and Himalayan Center काठमाडौँ सेन्टरको बारेमा चाहिँ भन्न चाहन्छु। यो चाहिँ हाम्रो एएनएचएस हिमालय चाहिँ युएस बेस्ड अर्गनाइजेसन हो, तर हाम्रो चाहिँ एएनएचएस काठमाडौँ सेन्टर चाहिँ त्यसैको एउटा बडी हो। हामी नेपालको स्कलरहरू नै त्यसको मेम्बर छौँ। यहाँ हाम्रो डाक्टर अमर विश्वकर्मा पनि हुनुहुन्छ, उहाँ चाहिँ प्रेसिडेन्ट हुनुहुन्छ एएनएचएसको। हामीले चाहिँ सोसियल साइन्स बाहा लगायत अरू विभिन्न एकाडेमिक अर्गनाइजेसन्सहरूसँग मिलेर नेपालको अर्ली करियर रिसर्चर्स प्लस सोसियल साइन्सलाई कन्ट्रिब्युसन गर्नको लागि विभिन्न एक्टिभिटिजहरू गरिरहेको छौँ। अनि वी आर भेरी प्लिज टु ह्याभ दिस कोलाबोरेसन विथ सोसियल साइन्स बाहा। सो we are very excited to welcome Sara E. Baumann today to deliver her lecture on Between Transition and Transformation, Visual Accounts of Menstrual Experiences in Rural Nepal Using Collaborative Filmmaking. So I'll very briefly introduce Sara. Sara is Assistant Professor in Behavioral and Community Health Sciences at the University of Pittsburgh School of Public Health, United States. She is the founder and director of the Global Women Health Research, GLOHER Collective. Her research focuses on three interconnected areas: the application of participatory, art-based and visual research methodologies, gender and reproductive health, and mental health. Dr. Baumann is the creator of collaborative filmmaking, a participatory visual research approach that involves training community members as filmmakers to engage and contribute to health research, advocacy, and interventions. Her interdisciplinary work has been published in international peer-reviewed journals, including PLOS ONE, Global Public Health, and the American Journal of Public Health, and numerous others. मैले छोटकरीमा भन्नुपर्दा हामीले साराजीलाई चाहिँ कसरी पनि चिन्छौँ भने रिसर्च चाहिँ भिजुअल मेथड प्रयोग गरेर पनि भिजुअल रिसर्च गर्न सकिन्छ भनेर उहाँले जुन खालको चाहिँ कोलाबोरेटिभ फिल्म मेकिङबाट चाहिँ पार्टिसिपेन्टहरूलाई नै फिल्म मेकिङ गर्न सिकाएर त्यसको माध्यमबाट चाहिँ उहाँले रिसर्च गरिराख्नु भएको छ। यहाँ धेरै स्कलरहरू हुनुहुन्छ, रेस्पेक्टेड स्कलर्स, रिसर्चर्स फ्रम त्रिभुवन युनिभर्सिटी, काठमाडौँ युनिभर्सिटी, among others. There are also some students. So I hope this would be a very interesting experience for you. So now Sara, you will have about 40-45 minutes to share. अनि त्यसपछि चाहिँ हाम्रो करिब 20 देखि 30 मिनटको क्वेसन आन्सर सेसन्सहरू हुन्छ। Over to you, Sara, to deliver your lecture. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Neetaji, for that warm introduction, and thank you all for braving the rain and coming out for this talk. Can everyone hear me okay in the back? All good, thank you. Okay. It's truly an honor to be here among so many respected scholars, so many people that I have read your work and look up to you all. So thank you so much, especially Social Science Baha and ANHS for welcoming me here today. So I'm going to share just a small piece of my collaborative research with you all, and happy to chat more after and dive into more of these topics. But just by way of a brief introduction, so my global health research uses community-based and arts-based tools, and truly everything that I do is characterized by a commitment to community-engaged work. So you will see that in the work that I'm presenting here today, and I'm guided by a transformative research paradigm and as well as design justice in the work. I first found my way to Nepal in 2014, working in Karnali and Sudar Paschim for the World Food Program. And I've been working in Nepal ever since. Nepal has welcomed me, and it's been an amazing home. So it's been a wonderful journey. The project that I'm sharing here today is a beautiful example of what can happen when the right collaborations come together. It's an example of an interdisciplinary and collaborative piece. And throughout the presentation, I also hope to have some time to share some film clips with you all so you can hear the voices of the women who are really leading this work. Finally, I want to share that this work was conducted under the Dignity Without Danger research project, which many of you are probably familiar with. It's led by Dr. Sarah Parker at Liverpool John Moores University and generously funded through the British Academy. So as a part of that project, we had the opportunity to build out a collaborative filmmaking project as part of that larger research study. And so I want to thank that team, especially Sarah Parker, for really believing in the power of visual and empowered embodied methods. So let me start at the heart of this project, the women who guided, created, and led this work. These are community members living in Kanchanpur, far west Nepal, but they are also mothers, grandmothers, filmmakers, collaborative researchers, storytellers, and now advocates. They each use these tools in their own ways. And so this presentation is grounded in the voices of the 13 women that worked with us over 2 years to create, explore, and advocate for menstrual health in Nepal. They did ask us to use their names and their images throughout the presentation, so they want to be seen and they want to be heard, which is also incredibly important for us as a research team. Here's just a glimpse of our core team that led this work. We are researchers, advocates, mothers and fathers, menstruators, filmmakers, educators, writers, and photographers, and more. I think there are more skills than that as well. But we bring all of these identities to this work that's conducted in deep partnership with communities. So there's a lot to say about this project. I had a hard time kind of narrowing down what I would be able to get through in 45 minutes. This project unfolded across many different phases. It unfolded through and beyond the COVID-19 pandemic, which I'll talk a little bit about, and it continues to evolve to this day. So for today's talk, I decided to focus on 2 key goals. The first one is that I want to introduce collaborative filmmaking as an embodied, participatory, and visual research method for explaining complex health realities. Our team has gone on to use this method in 9 different projects across 5 different countries, so please do reach out to me and come talk to me afterwards if you're interested in learning more. I'll only be able to kind of touch the surface today. And then second, I know many of you are in the field of women's health. I'm very interested in also discussing some of the findings that came out of those collaborative filmmaking projects. These offer visual insights into the subtle negotiations, reinterpretations, and resistances of menstrual practices and what these mean for the field of menstrual health going forward. So let me jump into the details of the study that I'm presenting here today. It's called Visual Accounts of Menstrual Experiences in Rural Nepal Using Collaborative Filmmaking. And here are some of the guiding objectives that we set out with. Our first objective was to unpack complexities in the menstrual narrative. So global narratives tend to focus on the chalgot. Chalpati is at the center of often international news when it comes to menstruation. But this often overlooks the complexities of the broader continuum of menstrual practices, the negotiations, the adaptations that women are making in their day-to-day lives. The second objective was to really center hidden voices, so especially focusing on the lived experiences of women and girls in Nepal, putting them at the center of this work. Notably, while much menstrual health research has focused on adolescent girls, mothers and grandmothers, who are really the custodians of these traditions, remain largely absent from the literature. So we wanted to kind of advance understanding and knowing among that group as well. And third, we aim to explore these intergenerational dynamics. Who transmits menstrual norms? Who resists? Who quietly shifts them? We sought to capture a range of ages and backgrounds in our study to begin to understand how menstrual norms are transferred and transformed across generations. So I recognize that many of you are already experts in much of this topic, so I don't want to go into too much detail, but I just want to spend a few moments grounding us in the research topic, which is focused on menstrual practices in Nepal. So interestingly, research suggests that around 91% of women and girls throughout Nepal practice at least one form of menstrual restriction during their menstrual cycles, whether that involves changes in their food habits, access to the kitchen, worship, different sleeping arrangements, among others. Chalpati represents the most extreme and visible form of these restrictions, concentrated in Karnali and Sudur Paschim, where you can see an example here on the slide. Chalpati is culturally embedded. It's a gendered exclusion rooted in beliefs around ritual impurity, whereby menstruating individuals are subject to spatial, social, and behavioral restrictions that can adversely affect their health outcomes and rights as well. The consequences of following menstrual restrictions are big. I'm a public health person, so I'm usually thinking about the public health lens. So we think about things like deadly snake bites, hypothermia, sexual violence, physical harm, stress, fear, and even depression. At the same time, Nepal is extraordinarily diverse, incredibly home to 142 caste and ethnic groups across three ecological belts, and menstrual practices we know vary across all of those domains. Our own quantitative work confirmed that practices differ significantly by caste ethnic background. So this points to a real need for more nuanced research, more nuanced understanding of how menstrual practices vary across different parts of Nepal, across caste, ethnic background, religious communities, as well as a need to understand kind of where this field should head. What do women believe should be the future of their menstrual traditions? That's really at the heart of what we wanted to find out. I've already talked to several of you who are very interested in film methods, so do not be disappointed. I will be sharing some of that now. So what do film methods offer? What do visuals offer? Before coming to public health, I actually worked as a documentary filmmaker and producer for several years. And so visual methods in the realm of academia felt like very much home to me. My work is grounded in a rich tradition of visual anthropology. Flaherty, Mead, Roche, McDougall, and Pink are each offering a different approach to what film can do in the service of better understanding the human experience. Visual anthropologists have been doing this for a very long time, as Mambandro could attest to. This is really the expertise of visual anthropologists. So I highly encourage you to check out these works. The model that really resonates with me, that I model a lot of my work off of, is the Elder and Kamerling's Drums of Winter. This is a collaborative, community-first film project that was made with rather than about the communities. That is the spirit that I carry with my work and the work that I'm going to be sharing here today. So building on that foundation of visual anthropology, I spent several years thinking about how can we bring the power of film and storytelling specifically to public health. I'm not an anthropologist, sadly. I'm in public health. It's a very pragmatic field and very, we like to use very tangible research methods. And so I was thinking, but you know, anthropology has this rich history of using all of these tools. Why can't we use these too? And so I embarked on this journey to try to figure out a way to bring my passion for film and storytelling into public health. And so my hypothesis was that participatory film methods might offer a way to uncover key nuances in stigmatized and socially, culturally situated health issues, ones that maybe other research methods like interviews or surveys cannot uncover. My early research was a review of film methods in the health literature. I found 15 distinct film methods that were published in the peer-reviewed health literature. It was more than I thought. I was quite surprised by that. And these projects spanned a number of health topics, from adolescent health to mental health. There was one about asthma, environmental health, and immigrant health. The documented benefits to using film in research were quite compelling. The authors talked about how they offered rich descriptions of complex health issues. They offered emic perspectives from the participants themselves. They also increased participant control. So this idea of handing the research tools over to the participants actually made the participants quite comfortable in the research process, which sometimes can be a barrier to qualitative research. And we also found that the tools could be used for empowerment and advocacy. Film is quite strong for that. But one finding that stood out through all of these studies was that a limited number of studies engaged participants throughout the entire research trajectory, the entire research process. So that gap became our entry point. We sought to address that gap directly by embedding community filmmakers at every step of the research process. So it was from that work, from that scoping review, that collaborative filmmaking was actually born, or CFM. CFM is how I might refer to it throughout the presentation. So collaborative filmmaking. It's a systematic, yet quite flexible approach that partners directly with community members, with or without filmmaking experience, to create, analyze, and screen their own films to address a complex health issue. The process unfolds in 6 steps, as you can see here on the slide. I'm going to just run through it quickly, and then what I would like to do is show you a film that will unpack it further. So the process starts off with training. You can imagine that if community filmmakers have never had experience holding a camera before, training is quite critical. So we start with a training process which is really catered to that particular community that we're working in, depending on their skills and their level of filmmaking expertise or storytelling background. We also, during that time, ensure that they're trained in research ethics, right? Because the filmmakers will be going out into the community and collecting potentially sensitive information. So thinking about how we're navigating ethics in that space is also critical. After the training, the filmmakers go out into their communities and create their own films centered around kind of whatever we've decided is our central research topic. Some projects have taken 2 weeks, some projects have taken 2 years. So it really ranges. The one that I'm sharing today is really a 2+ year project. After the filmmaking is complete, we come back together. We often work with professional editors to really pull together and streamline the story, but it's all done in direct guidance with the filmmakers themselves. After that is my favorite part of the process, which is called co-analysis. So we sit down with each of the filmmakers, we watch the films, and we unpack all of the messages, the motifs, the colors, the interactions, the people. We try to ask as much kind of probing questions as we can to really get at their vision. What is the story that they are trying to tell? So that is really at the heart of collaborative filmmaking, is this co-analysis, both individually as well as a group. We conduct that process. At the end, we find it's very important to share back the final product to the community, depending on if the participants want that. In my experience, all the filmmakers have wanted their films to go public, but it's certainly possible that in the future there might be something different that happens, and that's okay. But one of the real star parts of the process is sharing back the hard work that the community members have done and shared that back and get audience reactions. It's a really exciting part. And then we synthesize the data and we try to, advance the science. We try to publish and share, and we've shared at film festivals, we've shared at workshops like this, we've shared in the peer review literature. So we really try to bring what we've learned from the films to the public so that others can build upon this work. So that's what we do at the end in terms of the synthesis. So with that, I'm going to let you watch a little film. This film is a film that will walk us through the 6 steps of collaborative filmmaking. It's from the very first collaborative filmmaking project that we did, which was also in Nepal. So have a look. At the end, you'll see some sample footage from the participants, so you can kind of get a sense of what's created. And later on in the presentation, I will show you a longer excerpt from this particular project, the 2-year project I was telling you about. So let's hope technology is on our side, and I will try to play this for us.
This short film highlights the steps for implementing a participatory arts-based research method called collaborative filmmaking. This pilot study was developed and implemented by the University of Pittsburgh Graduate School of Public Health and the Nepal Fertility Care Center. The collaborative filmmaking research method was piloted with 7 girls, aged 16 to 18, in far west Nepal, where a variety of menstrual practices and beliefs are present, including a traditional practice called chaupadi, where women are isolated during their menstrual cycles. Our team conducted a 2-day intensive workshop where we taught participants basic filmmaking skills through games and exercises. Each participant had the opportunity to use the camera to shoot their own footage and experience seeing themselves on film. The workshop was also an important space to introduce participants to the research question, what are the traditional menstrual practices in your family? We had a brainstorming exercise where everyone shared their family practices. After generating a list of ideas, we asked the participants to visualize their film by creating a storyboard. During the workshop, participants all had a chance to watch each other's films and participate in a film critique. Participants were asked to discuss the strengths of each film and the ways to improve it. Once participants were trained in filmmaking, each participant was given a camera to make their own films. Using video cameras gave participants an opportunity to capture intimate aspects of their daily lives. The participants used cameras to film particulars about their world that helped define their beliefs and practices. Watching the films helped the researchers better understand the context of their practices and gain a deeper understanding of their actions in time and space. Throughout the study, we began to notice that participants started to develop their own creative voices and approaches, and they often engaged their friends and family members in the filmmaking process. After completing their films, the research team compiled and subtitled the films. Then the researchers met with each participant to watch the films and complete a participatory data analysis session. In this session, the researchers worked with the participants as collaborators, and the participants discussed the images, sounds, and actions seen in their films. In the next step, participants were brought together to screen all of the films and engage in further analysis about what they see, what they think, and what they learn from watching the films. This discussion allowed for participants, many of which have very different menstrual practices, to engage in discussions with each other about why they engage in certain practices and what they think can and should be done in their community. Finally, the participants were encouraged to screen their films in the community. The research team supported the participants with organizing the space and equipment for the screening, but it was up to the participants to decide who they wanted to invite and how they wanted to organize the event. In the end, the participants organized a small ceremony and seemed very proud to share their films with their friends, sisters, aunts, neighbors, fathers, and brothers.
So this is the footage from the participants. Okay, so now you have a little sense of what it looks like to actually use the method, all 6 steps. So I want to walk you through how we used that collaborative filmmaking method here to explore these visual accounts of menstruation in far west Nepal. We actually went back for this project and worked with the mothers and grandmothers. That was our starting point of the girls that you saw in this film. So actually many of them are related. So it's quite a cool project that took many, many years to complete. So our main goal here was to seek diversity across caste ethnic groups because we know that menstrual practices and beliefs differ quite a lot between those. And so we ultimately partnered with 13 women across 4 caste ethnic groups, ranging in age from 23 to 68. Well, COVID-19 hit during the project, so it certainly disrupted our original timeline, but in many ways it deepened our process. We were able to virtually engage through Zoom and Facebook Messenger, and that gave the filmmakers additional time to think, to reshoot, to work together to determine what was the key message that they wanted their film to have. It really gave them more time to kind of unpack those things. And so in some ways, there were other benefits that we hadn't anticipated that came from the COVID-19 pandemic. In this particular project, we worked in Kanchanpur, and the project unfolded over 2 years. We are still in touch with the women. In fact, Lakshmi and Sushma are here today, and they are the ones who primarily collaborate and work with the women. So I hope they will also chime in later and answer some questions too, because they're really key to those relationships. So over the course of those 2 years, They received training and mentorship in filmmaking. They hadn't used cameras before. They reviewed rough cuts of the film, so we would kind of go back and forth with the film edits and change things that they didn't like, or if they were embarrassed by a particular part, they would take it out and redo it. So there was a lot of flexibility. We visited numerous times by our research team. And the women were invited to reshoot anything that they didn't like. So this story really is the product of something that they're very proud of at the end, and really driven by them. They even wrote and recorded original songs, which you will hear. Those are embedded into the film, so all of the music that you hear is written by them, which is very cool. And all of those are on YouTube as well, so you can watch those after. Finally, consent. Consent is something that usually comes up a lot when thinking about visual methods, particularly film. And so consent was treated as an ongoing process, not just a signature on a piece of paper. This was something that we had to revisit time and time again at every stage of the project, every kind of connection point we had with the participants, because you can imagine with a topic like chavadi or menstrual seclusion, speaking out can result in all sorts of ramifications. And so in this particular project, by the end, all of the women were happy to have their films shared. But again, that's something that has to be kind of negotiated at all stages of the project. So now the part that's most exciting. I'm sure you're wondering, what did they actually make? So by the end of 2 years, we had 2 films that were created by the community filmmakers. I'm going to describe them briefly, but at the end, I will give you the QR code so that you can watch them. The first is 8 Days. This is a 37-minute documentary that offers an intimate portrayal of menstrual experiences across these issues of caste, ethnic, religious, and generational lines. Centered on the 8 days of menstrual traditions observed each month, the film captures the filmmakers' daily routines and reflections, revealing both shared and divergent practices in the same community. The second film, Stay Away, is a drama that opens with a women's savings group meeting, and then a conflict arises because a menstruating woman comes to sit with the group. She's urged to sit apart, but she resists. She says she feels hated because she menstruates and she doesn't follow the same practices as everyone else. Her decision to sit with the group prompts the village grandmother to fear contamination, a moment that crystallizes this deep stigma surrounding menstruation. The following day, the grandmother falls ill, and she attributes this sickness to the encounter. I'm sure many of you have heard this story before. What follows is her journey seeking out answers. She moves between hospital care, traditional care, seeking out dhamis, and ultimately transformation. So the themes of the film weave together these issues of purity and pollution and the tension between traditional beliefs and the biomedical care system as well, in ways that I think a survey or interview might not truly capture. So I will be sharing that film momentarily with you guys, but first, before I jump into that, I just want to give a recap of kind of some of the key themes that we as a team uncovered in both film projects. I only have time to show you one film today, but in both of these films, we were able to uncover key complexities of menstrual traditions and how those are shifting over time. And so there's kind of 4 key themes that came out. The first is that we were able to capture what we call lived geographies, or the ways in which women navigate space, movement, and social tension during menstruation. This gets at this idea that menstrual restrictions are not just social or temporal, but they are fundamentally spatial. Women during menstruation are not simply told what to do or what not to do, they are told where they can and cannot be, where they can move and where they cannot move, and who they can be near and who they must avoid. Closely related to this is a second theme that we found around sacred spaces and traditions that tend to prevail. Even when other practices are shifting for pragmatic reasons, sacred spaces are well maintained, at least in this particular community. We also identified what we call the labor paradox. While women are barred from doing indoor work during menstruation, which many of you are familiar with, they are simultaneously expected to continue doing outdoor work, or sometimes additional work that they didn't do while they're not menstruating. So finally, across both films, we observed signs of a generational shift, quiet negotiations, as well as intergenerational tensions between the older and younger generations. It was very neat to have girls 23 working with women of 68. That age range really made this project special for them to actually interact and share and be in dialogue with one another. And so I will say by the end of the project, there was this reoccurring sentiment that women do not necessarily want to pass these traditions down to their daughters. There were many quotes, I'll share a few, that spoke to that, which was quite interesting. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and share the 15-minute drama that was created by these women, and you'll get to have some insight into their creative process. Listen for the music too, that's all by them.
मैले भने अब छोडिदिनु सानो उहाँलाई हामीसँग बस्न रमाइलो लागिरहेछ एक्लै बस्न नरमाइलो लागिरहेछ यो प्राकृतिक नियम हो मिल्छ भनेको तपाईँ पनि हुनुहुन्थ्यो हामी पनि हुन्छौँ म त मिल्छ भइरहेको छु मेरो काम त कहाँ कहाँ हुन्छ म त आइरहेको छु त्यो समय
आइरहेको छु र म मिल्छु अब यहाँ बस्नु भन्नु हो
म सधैँ मिल्छ भएको बेला आउँछु तपाईँ बिमारी हुनुहुन्छ
बिमारी हुनुहुन्छ नि त किन नहुन्छ
बिरामी त हुने टक्क घर जान अन्त ईश्वर समयमा आएर घर जान गयो हात धोन गयो धान्लो गयो खान उनका निको हुन्छ त त्यहाँ ईश्वर जान्न जितो गरेर जान पुक्का डुरो बैठ्यो भनेर हो
यस्तो हो कि दिदी अब उहाँ मिल्छ हुनुभएको छ त हजुरलाई थाहा छ अब घर गएर जसरी राम्रो हो त्यस्तो गर्नु है समयमा त्यसरी त मिल्छ हुनुहुन्छ यस्तो भनेर एक्लै बस्न गराउनु राम्रो होइन नि त
के भयो आमा
पानी खाना कसो हुन्छ
के भयो कसो जरुरी के अवस्था भयो
लियो पानी खाना
के भन्छ अस्पताल जाने अब के गयो छैन घर दुनिया अवस्था तम हर घरे कोही अस्पताल जानु अस्पताल जानु पर्छ
कहाँ हो रहेछ जर बढी बढी नाच्ने कोही हुनारो अरे
त्यो त मलाई पहिले भने हो नि त्यो गर्नुपर्छ अस्पताल लिनुपर्छ अब
त्यही त मैले भने गौत गोबर आपस जन लगाओ अन्धविश्वास आपस जन लगाओ छुएले केही हुँदैन त
अस्पताल लिनुपर्छ अब
ल ल ल
बढी भयो अब यसलाई खुन जाँच पेसाब जाँच गरेर अस्पताल लैजा बाबु लौ जा
आज बढाएर छ
देखो तो मुझे निकाय दिखा दे हम
धोको थियो यहाँ बढ भएर थिएन आज बढ भयो
कि क्या हमरा सामान तुमलाई हाँ और तो सो कासो सासो लाग्या तो सो और केही समस्या त नाही तिम्रो
जो त अहिले आइरहेछ कि जो पेपर ब्याग बढाएर छ
ये बोली कि दवाई ले खंडे तो
त्यहाँको दबाई दिने अब
खानाको भयो खाँचोको लागि अब गेस्टिक हुने गेस्टिक हो
एकखेप त म प्रेसरले जान्छ
जतिलाई छुईलाई घुम्ला त्यो 6 महिनालाई जब जरा आउँछ त्यो 6 बजे लाग्ने तब म जरा आउँला
तसो त बच्चालाई घुम्न आयो भने आमाले त तम त जाने बुझे अरूलाई सम्झुने मान्छे अरे तमले कसो त ल्याए घुम्नु पर्यो त छुइले ल्यायो तसो बिमार हुने छुइले थोरै बिमार हुन्छ मान्छे त्यो तमलाई पहिलेको चलन अनुसारले सोचे मात्र अरे
अघिलाई
तसो झटाइदिनु पर्छ के कसो कि ल्यायो छुइले खाए ल्यायो मान्छे जब बुढो हुँदै गयो काय कमजोर हुँदै गयो शरीरहरुका पार पुजा कमजोर हुँदै जान लाग्यो हो अब यो मान्छेलाई रोगहरु लाग्या जलाउने मुटु चढिदिने अनि टमाटो प्रेसर ल बढी रहेछ अच्छा दबाई खान छाडेछ हो
दूसरा दिन भयो
के छाडे दबाई खान
फुर्सद भइहाल्छ पर धर्मबाट उठाइलानु पर्छ दबाई गए
समते त
आफ्नो गोठी ल्याउनु गरे हो
त्यो एक लामो सास हेर त यिनीहरुको छातीमा पनि इन्फेक्सन देखिरहेछ
अहिले मेरा दोष लगाना जजिरा तम भण्या मान्न नाही तम तुका समझाइ दिएन
आमा तमको त छाती नै खराब भएछ प्रेसर नै बढेछ तमले दबाई खानु त चाहिन्छ त
कामनाको दिन मुदे ब्रिज मान्छे भन्ना मान्छे त काम नगर्दै हुनाले
तसो जन्मले नानी गास पकाएर दिनमा आछिले घरमा तसो जन्मले त छुए छाएको उनी नाइ ओइसो भया यो तमको शरीरमा सन्चो नाइदिन प्रेसरलाई बढेछ म दबाई लेख्दिन तम ये दबाई खाया रे 2-4 दिन पछि आया उही निको नभ्याएको एक फेर रगो जसो होला मेरी बुहारी दाउरा घाँसजा बन्छे दाउरा घाँसजा बन्छे मेरी बुहारी दाउरा घाँसजा बन्छे दाउरा घाँसजा बन्छे
अब त चित्त बुझिनु भयो डाक्टरले भन्छ
बिमार भयो भन्दा म त धान सक्छु
अरे
म त
अस्पतालले दबाई दिन्छ
दबाई नामाले म त निको नामाले अस्पताल दबाई
पहिले दबाई त खाऊ रे
धान पनि छोड्यो धान त गरेर जानु
अब
काले मे पडोस बुहारी खा गयो
के भन्ना छ जो के भन्ना छ
म त धान सक्यो अस्पताल दबाई दिनु न
अस्पतालले दबाई पनि खाए हेर भन्ना रे हामी सधो भन्ना रे
धान त गर
हिटो पनि मेरे खसले धान खाल्दै मेरे सब दबाई चाल ओ खसले ये बिले बिमार है हमारे वाला बिमार हो रहे हैं ऐसे दाम सब जो दर्द कम जो धनर समाजा दर्द
के बोले
ना ये कौन की भैया बचे
ना तो का चलन में फूल जाना है
ये और वो निकल देगी जो
के छैन रोग यो रोग हो दोष छैन निर्माण त खालि नानीहरू व्यक्तिगत थियो रोग हो रोगमा अस्पताल लैजा अस्पतालको इलाज गरा
छ लगे भन्ना रे
नानी छ के जाने के रोग छ यहाँ कमजोरी हो यो रोग हो इलाज गर्नु पर्यो इलाज गर्नु के हुँदैन हो ठिक हो जाने हो अस्पताल जानु पर्यो अस्पताल
कम तो फुल हो बन बुतिया
अब बुआ दोष
I only have a couple minutes left, but I really wanted you guys to see kind of one of the full packaged films, because the whole messaging around what was the message that they wanted other people to know about menstruation was quite strong, and that's a whole conversation. But what I wanted to touch on briefly at the end here is just these kind of themes that came out of not only this film, but also the other film and all of the data that we collected. And this is precisely where film earns its place as method, I think, because you could literally see how the women are navigating their relationships and their spaces and their boundaries beyond what other traditional methods could offer. And so for this idea of lived geographies and how they're navigating space, we came to think about this as the boundaries of the body. For many women and the women that they care for, menstruation fundamentally shapes the patterns of social and spatial avoidance. Women face restrictions across many sites, as you could see, but these range from markets to tube wells to trees to religious spaces and more. And in this particular area, the sleeping separate is more common than sleeping, say, in a menstrual hut. This is declining, but there are still strong beliefs around ritual impurity. Women also described physical vulnerabilities, fears that they had during menstruation, like snake bites and assault. And they also spoke to the emotional weight of exclusion, this idea of this internalized acceptance of these restrictive norms and what those can mean for mental health. As you saw on that red screen, all of those messages that women are being bombarded with every month, it's easy to see that this could have kind of internalized implications. So taken together, menstrual restrictions can put women in a place of physical danger, but they also carry real emotional costs, shaping where women go and what they can do and how they understand themselves during menstruation. In the other film, the documentary film, this comes out quite clearly in terms of the paradox of labor, this idea that women face restrictions inside the house but are expected to do outdoor work. I will say that a small number of women did describe occasionally receiving rest when they were unwell, but this was very much the exception rather than the norm. So for me, the finding from this key theme is really that menstruation shifts the location of women's labor. It doesn't necessarily shift its burden. When care gaps emerge and someone has to step up and do the cooking or the care work, it's usually other women in the village who are not menstruating who fill that gap. One of the most striking findings across all of the films also was this idea of sacred spaces and what makes them distinct from other restrictive places. So unlike the kitchen or sleeping arrangements, tempo restrictions were rarely questioned by participants. They appeared self-evident. They were woven into the moral and social fabric of community life, and they were really placed beyond negotiation. So interestingly as well, participants were careful to distinguish between religion and tradition, and I think that's something that needs to be unpacked in future studies. For instance, one woman talked about how we are all Hindus, but their way of practicing and our way of practicing is different. So even within kind of one community, one neighborhood, people are practicing in distinct ways. Another person offered maybe the most clarifying insight on this theme, which was really, they said the biggest thing is tradition rather than God. So this idea of religion and tradition, we need to kind of unpack that. So while other traditions have been changing, this idea of really staying away from sacred spaces, sacred space avoidance, is largely intact. And then finally, where are the changes happening? We did see some evidence of this tradition in transition. So many participants did talk about how things had improved from the past, how they used to stay without food, how they used to not be able to cook their food if it was raining, and they said that it's not that extreme anymore, which is, from a public health standpoint, a positive. Another interesting thing kind of related to the intergenerational aspect was that some talked about breaking the cycle for the next generation. So the idea of saying it's important to not discriminate against our daughters should not have to follow this. Many of them talked about, we would not send our daughters off into the fields to do this hard work during menstruation. So overall, women have recognized that things have improved, and many are determined not to pass on these traditions to their daughters. But as you saw in this film, there still is this elder pressure that slows down change. Many of these women have been practicing for decades, so it is hard to change those mentalities. Okay, I know I only have 1 minute left. So I'll end here by talking a little bit about how we are using these films in advocacy and practice. So beyond their analytical value, we are using these to raise awareness. The picture you see here is a picture of the 11 filmmakers who came to Kathmandu. We had a private film screening with several high-level policymakers, and the women were able to share the films and interact with and have dialogue with policymakers at the national level, which was incredible and just amazing to see that the film could be kind of a way to open up dialogue. We've also held screenings at KIMF, the Kathmandu International Mountain Film Festival, with more of a public audience, as well as at the district level at Far Western University, and invited mayors and ward chairs to come and engage on the topic. And so what we found was that the film was a powerful way to start those conversations. Since I don't have much time, I'm just going to jump ahead and just say that the power of collaborative filmmaking here was really centering the community voices, bringing them to the room and bringing them to the conversation, even if they can't physically be here. So we thank them for everything that they've offered and shared with us and their vulnerability. And as we chat, I will leave this slide up, which has the links to the full films. The paper that we just published on this topic last week is here. And then we have more resources from other projects around the world along with the full films, if you're interested in seeing that at collaborativefilmmaking.com. And the last thing I'll say is that we have a 5-year study that kind of builds on this work, so happy to talk about that as well. And finally, this presentation is in loving memory of our Hajar Amma Janaki Joshi, who you saw starring in the film. She passed away during this project, but was an incredible woman, as I'm sure you could see from her personality. So thank you all for listening, and I'm excited to have a conversation with you all. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Sara. And indeed, we really had a wonderful learning experience, I think, to understand how the collaborative filmmaking works. And then also it was an opportunity for many of us here in the room to understand the process of it and also the value it brings to the research. That research doesn't have to be just about the data collection, the extractive form of the research, but research can be also a form of conscientization and a process of empowerment in itself. So thank you so much for that. So now we have about 20 minutes or so. I would like to have the floor open. Please, introduce very briefly yourself and then ask question. I see hand raised from Dr. Poonam Yadav.
Thank you. Thank you for the wonderful presentation. My name is Poonam Yadav. I'm at University College London. I'm a professor there. I work on gender as well. I have two questions. One was about the 91% practicing some form of mental restrictions. Who are the 9% who don't? And the 9%, so 91% practice some form of restriction. Who are the 9% who don't? The second question is about your methodology, visual ethnography. So I was wondering, you coming from the global north, applying that method to global south, and coming up with this brilliant piece of work. Me coming from the global south, I'm going to the global north to do the same sort of research. What would be the challenges, do you think, if I were to do the similar sort of study? Thank you.
Thank you. Do you want to take a few more questions before you answer, or you want to maybe take two more?
Maybe, yeah.
Okay.
Too many, but yeah, I'm one of them.
Okay, one more?
One more is good.
Okay,
Yeah.
one more. Okay, I'll come to you, sir. Okay.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Sara, for the excellent presentation. This probably is going beyond the scope of your research, but I was wondering if there is any pattern that you saw from like among the male figures within families and communities, if they encouraged or discouraged menstrual practices. This I'm also saying because I think in the last clip, Hajurama kind of switched very quickly, and probably it's the sequencing of the video clips, but she was convinced that it's not because of the menstruation that she is sick. And the clip before that showed us that she visited Adhami, a male figure who said the same thing, which the medical officer probably said as well. But it's like who convinced her, that was quite interesting. So if there was any pattern as such that you saw in the community and among the family. Also, I didn't introduce myself, but I'm Abha Khatri, and I work with UNICEF in the Global Gender Team. Thank you.
Okay, amazing questions, thank you. I'll start with the one in the back, or the two questions in the back. So the figure, the 91%, this came from a quantitative study that we did across, I want to say 6 districts. I'd have to go back to the data. It was collected by NFCC, and we supported with the analysis, that quantitative analysis. But then there's also other UNICEF mixed data, there's DHS data, there's other data that also, it's sometimes studies say 90, sometimes it's 91, but it's very close. In terms of what is different about those other percent, I can't tell you which caste they're from. We haven't done the analysis, right, on kind of the complexities of what makes up their demographics. But essentially the question was worded as, what menstrual practices do you follow? Pick one or pick all that apply. If they did not select any, that was no menstrual practices, right? So we have to also go back to the tool and make sure, but we've seen multiple studies that are around that same 90, 91%. And yeah, to your point, interesting, like I'm thinking about this idea of a kind of global north, global south, global north kind of flow of a method like this. Is kind of, I think, where the question's kind of getting at. And yes, absolutely. So it happened to be that for my PhD, I developed this method, and I happened to be working in Nepal at the time. I think I very much could have happened to be working in the US developing this method. And in fact, we have done several projects in the US that I can talk about, which I think is quite interesting, just kind of thinking through different kinds of challenges and different kinds of resources, different kinds of challenges, different kinds of community partners that we have. For all of the projects that we've done, from the US to Nepal to Madagascar, we've always worked with a community partner who has really led the on-the-ground work. So in this case, like Sushma and Lakshmi are here, like we couldn't have done this work without them. Same thing for my projects in Pittsburgh. So we recently finished up a 2-year collaborative filmmaking project where we worked with parents who have lost a child due to a life-limiting illness. And you can imagine that is like an extremely heavy, challenging, trauma topic. And so we partnered with the Pediatric Palliative Care Coalition to lead that work, and they really took the lead in terms of making sure the participants were supported, connected to resources, making sure that we're really recruiting the kind of participants who would benefit from this work. Because to Michi's point, actually participating in collaborative filmmaking is an intervention in itself. So we're actually writing a paper now where we're consolidating findings and lessons learned from all of the projects in those 9 settings that I talked about. And I think some of the insights are going to be really helpful kind of getting at your question, because in different contexts, there are different challenges. And so certainly we've done kind of projects in the Global North and the Global South. Challenges are different, but I think what kind of holds together and true is that this community partnered work is at the center of everything, and that's really key, as well as the flexibility of the method. I mentioned that this project was 2 years. Other projects we've done in a couple of weeks' time. It really depends. And so I think thinking about your particular setting, your particular needs, your particular research question, I think all of these, your participants, what do they need? Do they need, supports and training over a long period of time, or is that not feasible, right? So I think all of these things matter depending on the context. So thank you for asking that question. And then, yes, to the question in the front, the question around male figures. I mean, you hit the nail on the head. Your analysis of the end of the film is exactly correct. all of these people in the community have been trying to convince her that this was from not taking her regular medication. But as soon as she went to the dummy, who really had nothing to offer other than, I think she's sick, she listened and she's like, oh, okay. So that was actually the point. I know it was like quick cut editing, but the point was exactly that, right? The power of the dummy, the message of the dummy, as well as male figures, right? That there is a sense of power that certain figures in the community hold. So I certainly think we need to be thinking about how to harness them. And I know many projects, many NGOs in Nepal have been working, I think probably UNICEF has funded some of them, working with traditional healers and trying to shift their attitudes, because for the reasons you just saw here, they do have the power to bring about a lot of change. But from our partners who have been doing this work, they said it's extremely challenging and it takes a really long time. Not directly related to this work, but some other work that we're doing in Dailek. The women have told us they had quite an interesting analysis of this, because we always ask them, well, should we target the Dami Japris? And they said, actually, ma'am, you should be targeting us. We are the ones who are perpetuating. It's my sister, it's my auntie, it's my mother-in-law, it's us who are perpetuating. And I was like, well, that's quite interesting. And they articulated that, like, we need the empowerment training, we need the negotiation, the kind of community dialogue. We need to be trained in how to kind of stand up for our own rights and our desires, and then we think change will happen. So, every community is different and has different needs, but that was quite interesting. And when we said, well, should we work with the Dami Jakris? They said, you can, but they're never going to change. We will change. We can change. And so that was kind of gave me some hope, actually, that like, okay, if we're doing work directly with the women, maybe this will result in some incremental change. So it's quite interesting. But yes, I think men and religious leaders do have a huge role to play in this issue. Thank you.
Thank you. And I've seen the hand raised from Professor Dr. Baumann Patri sir, and we'll take one more question for this round as well.
Thank you very much. It is very wonderful presentation, Sara. Congratulations to you. And I highly appreciate that you have adopted this collaborative visual method, which can be shown not only heard and read, can be shown to the people and also to the community. They learn the skills and knowledge and all kind of visual things also. Not only the elites or this group get the benefit, but also the common people, the collaborator or participants also learn that. And it is very interesting, and as I'm from Film University, and we are also trying to establish visual anthropology in Nepal, and we are struggling, and it will be it's not my question, but it's more request to you that you should have written one metrological paper on the same topic, collaborative, how we can use collaborative visual method while doing the research, and very short, not very long, it's around 3,000 words, and we'd like to publish that in Dhaulagiri Journal. Maybe you can collaborate with Sara Parker also.
Yes.
She's quite busy, yes I know, and if you lead that, it would be very nice. So that was my one thing, because it's very important, and we have to learn. Our students must learn, but it might be a bit costly. But still, it's the method is wonderful. So I just request you and appreciate your presentation, all kind of things, these things. I think that you are happy, and we are also happy. Thank you very much.
I'm also happy. Thank you.
Thank you. So shall I take one more question? Okay.
Hi Sara, Namaste. It's me, Arjun Yopani. I'm a student of Nitiman. And I have a question. I have two questions, but I already get the answer of one question. I just have one now. So my question is, what about the level of trusting of the such kinds of collaborating visual filming data method in research, and how you make the trust level in international level, what you were working to the intellectual level and the scholars in international level? That's my question.
Good question. Yeah. So I'll start with Man Bahadur ji. Thank you so much for that kind invitation. And in fact, I've already been telling many people here that they need to check out your movement in visual sociology and visual anthropology in Nepal because it's quite exciting. We attended, a workshop at the Department of Anthropology last year, and I think there's a lot of interest. So if you're a student or a researcher wanting to get involved, I definitely recommend joining this group. I'm a very small part of it, but Man Bahadur is leading this, and it's amazing. And absolutely, I would love to. This paper that you see here is kind of the results-focused paper. So this is going to be of interest to people really wanting to unpack the menstrual practices. The methods paper has to come, and it's coming soon. And it's great to know, and I would love to publish it in Nepal actually, because coming back to the other question that was asked, kind of thinking about context also matters, right? What have we learned? We've now done 2 collaborative filmmaking projects specifically in Nepal. They're quite different from, the other projects we've done in Madagascar or the Republic of Georgia, for instance. India, we've done one in India, which I think we could learn a lot from, right? So I'll be thinking about this and connect with you. The last thing I'll say on that is that Niti and I have been also talking about the opportunity to maybe do some kind of workshop. Today was a lecture, but maybe we can do some kind of interactive workshop for students and scholars who want to actually learn the method and then go out and use it. I think that would be quite exciting for me as someone who is interested in bringing the method to many different topics, even if it's not my area of expertise. That's why I partner with experts in these areas. So if that would be of interest, please find us afterwards and we can talk about that as well. Yes, how the second question was about building trust. And I'm looking at Sushma now because I'm going to warn her that I might ask her to say something about this so she can have a little think. If you have something to add, just think about that. Because actually, coming back to my point before, 2 things. One is that this is the same community where I did my PhD field level research. So you can imagine I had already been working there before in partnership with NFCC. NFCC is an amazing organization, and they were able to really support me in building up the kind of local level contacts. We hired a local research assistant who was Nirmala, who worked with us throughout the whole project, 4 years. And those are the relationships that I think help build that trust. I think also the method lends itself quite well to building trust because of this kind of final output that comes from a project. So, for example, when I was there during my PhD, I was working with the adolescent girls. We created a film. At the end of the project, we brought the community to the tea shop and we showed the film. So people were probably wondering what I was doing there for quite some time, but they had the opportunity to meet me, to ask questions, to talk with the filmmakers, see what they learned. So if I really reflect, I think that made quite a big difference as to why we were able to kind of go back and work with the mothers and the grandmothers, because they already kind of knew me and my team, but primarily, actually, Sushma and Lakshmi were the ones who built the trust, and my guess was because Sushma is from that place. She speaks the local language, she's embedded in that culture. So I don't know, Sushma, if you want to talk about anything, any challenges or how you kind of overcame the trust, because she's better to speak to this than me.
You want to say like how I build the trust?
Yeah, how did you build the trust?
I can speak English, but my English is not so pure like
speak Nepali, it's fine.
I can tell you what I say later on.
Okay, perfect.
मलाई चाहिँ अब ट्रस्टलाई चाहिँ च्यालेन्ज हो। मेरो घर चाहिँ धनगढी, अब पहाडगढ चाहिँ डोटी हो। भाषा बोल्ने भएकोले मैले गाउँमा चाहिँ कसैलाई चिन्दिनँ। उनीहरू चाहिँ मेरो एड्रेस कहाँ हो, जस्तो मेरो बहिनीको विवाह चाहिँ महेन्द्रनगर गऱ्यो भने मैले यो मेरो बहिनीको ससुराली हो, यो घर यहाँ छ, मेरो धनगढीको मानु मेरो घर तारनगर त्यहाँ भनेपछि उनीहरूले पुरै मेरो घरको नम्बर यो, दाइको नम्बर यो भने चाहिँ दिदी अब हामीलाई यिनीहरूले गरेर के गर्छ हामी त तपाईँको घरमा आउँछु भनेको थिएँ क्या सुरुमा होइन फेरि त्यस्तो थियो कि यिनीहरूले अब सोच कस्तो हुँदो रहेछ भने आई थिङ्क एभ्रिबडी नोज द्याट अब लुकाउनु पर्ने आई डोन्ट थिङ्क लाइक मैले भन्नुहुन्न भने कस्तो हुन्छ विदेशको अनुहार देख्ने बित्तिकै अब गाउँमा चाहिँ के भएर ल अब यिनीहरू आयो तँलाई चाहिँ कहाँ पुर्याउँछन् भन्ने चाहिँ आम सोच हुन्छ सायद अरूले कतिले अनुभव गर्नुभएको छैन मलाई थाहा छैन तर है हामीलाई त्यही भनेको थियो सुरुमा त्यसले गर्दा चाहिँ अब आफूले पनि ठिकै छ भन्ने कुरा अनि के पनि ठिक भयो भने अब आई डोन्ट ब्लेम देम टु थिङ्क द्याट उहाँहरू चाहिँ अब गाउँबाट ढङ्गडीसम्म पनि कतिजना जानुभएको थिएन भने चाहिँ एउटा गाउँले जीवन चाहिँ कसरी प्याट्रियार्की सोसाइटीमा चाहिँ जहिले पनि हुन्छ नि अरूकै उसमा बस्नुपर्ने अब त्यति सोचेर डराउनु पर्ने पनि ठिकै पनि लागेको सोच्दाखेरि तर अब त्यही हो मैले चाहिँ ग्यारेन्टी दिएँ के भन्छु म जिम्मेवार हुन्छु भनेपछि अनि अब काम गर्दै जाँदाखेरि पनि कस्तो भयो भने विदिन फोर्स देम के एकदम खुला छोड्यो तपाईँले गलत काम गरे पनि तपाईँले कसैले कोसिस गर्दैन मलाई आएर भन्नु र म ठिक पार्छु भनेको थिएँ मैले सिधा कुरा त्यो करार हुन्छ कि झगडा गरेर हुन्छ बालै भएन कि आफ्नो कल्चर यस्तो छ भने किन लुकाउनु है यस्तो मैले भन्न खोजेको कस्तो हुन्छ भने सुदूरपश्चिम भन्ने बित्तिकै अब अलिकति चेन्ज भइसक्यो तर पहिला चाहिँ आई रिमेम्बर त्यो छाउबढिया मरेपछि अनि सायद पश्चिमबाट फुलकुदरामा काठमाडौँ आउँदाखेरि कुरा हुन्छ 10-15 वर्ष अगाडि पनि मलाई म पश्चिमको हो भन्दाखेरि अलिकति मान्छेले अब अलिकति त्यस्तो बिचमा त भन्न मिल्दैन नि त थोरै बहुत धेरै नजिकै फरकै हुन्छ कि भाषाको हिसाबले अब अहिले चाहिँ हाम्रो भाषा फेमस भयो गीतमा आउनु थाल्यो अब चाहिँ मान्छेले वाउ भन्नु थाल्छन् त्यो अब त्यो एक्सपिरियन्स पनि हुन्छ आफ्नै पनि भयो त्यो त कति कुराहरू आई क्यान रिलेट टु देम वाइ डु आर हेजिटेट बट अल्सो आई अल्सो त्यो त्यसले गर्दा बुझ्न सजिलो भयो त्यस्तो पछि त अब हामी घरकै अब सबै आफ्नै जिल्लाबाट कोही अब सबै यताउति चिनेको पनि पर्दै अब नाता खोटाउँदै गयो भने त पनि निस्क्यो यसलाई चिन्छु उसलाई चिन्छु भन्दाखेरि अनि ट्रस्ट भन्ने कुरा चाहिँ आई थिङ्क म पुरा हामीले उहाँहरूलाई चाहिँ अब उनीहरूको हिचकिचाउँछ जस्तै गाउँ खानेकुरा आउँथ्यो भिडियोमा खाने कि नखाने भन्ने कन्फ्युज थियो कि पानी ल्याउँछु भन्ने अनि सोद्धाखेरि होइन खाना के हो फेरि कसैले के भन्ने हो कि क्लिममा देखेछ भने चाहिँ कसैले के भन्दैन गर्नुहोस् भनेको थियो कि हामीले चाहिँ त्यस्तो कुराहरू हुन्छ त्यो अर्को तपाईँहरूले हेर्दै जानुभयो भने त्यहाँ चाहिँ साँच्चीकै त्यो 4 दिनमा त्यो साँच्चीकै हुनुभएको थियो कि 4 दिनमा उहाँले साँच्चीकै त्यो गाईको बाछाबाट गहुँ निकाल्ने टिप पनि छ कि सो यो दिदी राख्ने नराख्ने भनेर सोध्थ्यो हामीलाई अनि हामीलाई कस्तो के भने हुन्छ हामीलाई जे हजुरलाई ठिक लाग्छ गर्नुहोस् तर अप्ठ्यारो नमान्नुलाई भन्थ्यो कि हामीले अस्ति उनीहरूलाई कन्भिन्स पनि गर्नु पर्थ्यो त्यो हुँदा हुँदा आजको दिनसम्म आइपुग्दाखेरि आई फिल सो प्राउड द्याट उनीहरूले कुरा खुलेर भन्छ कि अहिले चाहिँ मैले यस्तो गरिरहेको थिएँ भनेर कि सायद एचिभमेन्ट चाहिँ त्यही हो जस्तो लाग्छ मलाई कमिङ फ्रम फार वेस्ट अनि आफै पनि अहिले पनि कन्फिडेन्स मेरो पनि पहिलाभन्दा धेरै बढाएको छ ती कुराहरूमा सो रिसर्च के हो भन्ने कुरा त्यति बेला पैसा लागि गरिने काम त है अहिले चाहिँ मास्टर स्टडी गर्ने हुनाले यसको महत्त्व यस्तो रहेछ भन्ने पनि धेरै कुरा बुझेँ भनौँ न अब कसरी सुरुको कामहरू अहिले चाहिँ अब गीतहरूको भावहरूमा आफूलाई निहालेर हेर्दाखेरि ओहो हाम्रै जेनेरेसन भनौँ मैले थोरै बोकेँ भने तर हाम्रो आमाहरूको दिदीहरूको स्टिल त्यो एक्ज्याक्टली सेम छ केही चेन्ज भएको छैन कि अझ रमाइलो के छ भने अघि जुन त्यो हजुरआमाको गीतको त्यो माया दिदी हुनुहुन्थ्यो नि माया दिदी चाहिँ मान्दै नमान्ने पछि चाहिँ हामी यो फिल्म देखाउन गएर उहाँको छोरीले देउडा लागेर चाहिँ उहाँ मान्ने हुनुभएको कि गाउँमा फेरि सबैभन्दा बढी त्यस्तो भएको के चेन्ज भन्ने कुरा नि त्यो अब पछि लास्ट स्कुल कुरा हो अनि उहाँले ल बाहिर भएको छ भने चौधरी हुनुहुन्थ्यो भित्र नहो मेरो त छोरीलाई देउता लागेको छ अब माने तिम्रो यस्तो के भने भन्नुहुन्थ्यो कि अनि त्यो इट वाज भेरी इन्ट्रेस्टिङ त्यो देउताको दर कति हुन्छ भन्ने कुरा कि हाम्रो चाहिँ अब हामी वर्षको एकचोटि कमाउनु चलन छ मेरीतिर पनि मै पनि मान्छु तर त्यो भन्दै बित्तिकै आयो होइन त्यस्तो मेरो पर्सनल बिलिफको कुराहरू हो त्यो धेरै कुरा छन् कि अब भन्दै गयो धेरै लाग्नु जान्छ अब सायद मलाई लाग्छ यहाँ रुममा बस्नुभएको सबै विज्ञहरू हुनुहुन्छ अब धेरै जान्नु पनि हुन्छ होला है मलाई त सानो एक्सपिरियन्स लाग्छ त्यति नै हो मेरो चाहिँ धन्यवाद
Do you want to add anything to conclude? Okay. Two more questions or reflection, and I also wonder whether it would be more impactful if we take our discussion continued further outside of this room as well. Please, Lakshmi, and then we'll come to
विश्वास गर्यो भन्ने कुरामा सानो मैले जोड्न खोजेँ हाम्रो चाहिँ ओडाको अफिस नै त्यही गाउँमा थियो जहाँ फिल्म बनाइयो अनि त्यो ओडामा चाहिँ पुरा ट्रान्सपेरेन्सी थियो कि हाम्रो प्रोग्राम जस्तो हामीले ट्रेनिङहरू त्यही गाउँमै दियौँ होइन होटलहरूमा त्यही बस्यौँ अनि कसैले त्यो हामीलाई शङ्का गर्ने ठाउँ थिएन ओडादेखि फुल सपोर्ट हामीलाई गर्नुभएको थियो जब कि हाम्रो एज देखिसक्नुभयो कति वर्षदेखि कति वर्षसम्म भयो अनि रिलिजन
अनि कास्ट एजुकेसन भन्ने एकदमै ग्याप थियो नि त तर त्यो कमन भोइस आयो कि त्यसले गर्दा चेन्ज हुन चाहिँ बेर लागेन र त्यो प्रोग्राम गर्नुको लागि हामीलाई एकदमै सजिलो भयो कसैले शङ्का गर्ने ठाउँ चाहिँ त्यहाँ थिएन थ्याङ्क यू म यतिको लागि
Thank you, Lakshmi.
Hi, Sara. This is Amar. Thank you so much. Very wonderful work and very insightful, research. So I'm wondering how a visual researcher analyze their data. Is it, distinct from like those of interviews, observation, ethnography, or similar like coding, categorization, this kind of thing? And how many video clips did you analyze? So if you can, explain a little bit the process, strategy, or method of analysis, that would be great.
Yeah, that's a great question. I feel like I could talk about that for a long time, so I'll try to go quickly and simplify. I think there's certainly ways in which visual analysis is similar to other qualitative methods in terms of kind of familiarizing yourself with all of the data that you have, trying to identify tags, whether that's a visual tag or a code that's a word. So the coding process is quite similar. And then trying to bring those codes into a broader thematic analysis. I think that kind of functioning of the analysis process is quite similar. I will say that if I really look back and be critical, it's probably close to double the amount of data though than you would have in a traditional interview, because there's lots of qualitative softwares that can do this for you. With Deduce, you can bring in the interviews, the co-analysis transcripts, so our community members talking about the film, so we have words, and side by side you can tag the video, different parts of the video, with an example that might really nicely illustrate kind of what they're talking about. So that software is nice, but I've also done this just using Excel too. So you don't need fancy software, but it does get tricky, right? Because in that case, what we're doing is we're going through kind of each and every clip of the film, and we're trying to identify what is happening here. So sometimes we code for the visual, sometimes we code for time. Like sometimes we were just curious how much time of the film are they spent, say, away from other people. So I think it depends on your research question, how you kind of frame your analysis. But I think if you're trained in qualitative research methods, it's quite similar in that way. And there's a lot of tools that can help support kind of coding the themes in the films as well. But it's a lot of data. You have all of your visual data alongside all of your interview data, alongside all of your field notes and your reflections. So one of the downsides maybe to this approach is that it is resource intensive. It takes time. It takes so much time to do qualitative analysis, and then you're adding these visual components and trying to figure out what visual from this project best represents lived geographies, right? This is like an added layer of analysis. However, at the same time, depending on what your output is, can be quite powerful depending on what your goals are. But it is certainly something to think about. But yeah, there are ways to do this manually and there are ways to do it with software. I'm happy to kind of unpack that further. Is that okay?
Thank you so much, Sara. This was a very impactful lecture, and I'm sure we all present here today learned something, and we all are very interested. And further, we want to learn more about collaborative filmmaking and visual research method. On that note, I end the lecture, and I would like to request also Kamarji to come over here. I'm told we have something to share with Sara, so it would be nice if you would come as well. Last but not the least, thank you so much for showing up, coming here to listen on this very day with a very unpredictable weather. Thank you for showing up. It is easy between
खोलेन